Hi, I'm Bob Sweeney, Station Manager for the City of Juneau Cable Channel 991, and today I'm going to make the Juneau Garden video of the season. We're going to take a little walk around my yard again, but I don't think it makes sense to try to do anything anymore since September. Everything is pretty much done. I start here where we usually do, by my canna plants. The Japanese beetles have been in there a lot this season. I think I handled them a little bit better this year than in the past. I would have to go in there with some soapy water, take a little pail of water and put a little bit of dish soap in it to break the surface tension of the water. Just go around and knock them off. I had to do that with these plants, and especially my raspberries. I have two different types of raspberries, and I had to go around those, every day that I was home, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day with the main bed, because he just kept coming back. But I'll show you some things I've done to try to trap the Japanese beetles and have them removed from the area. But we can take a little closer look at the canna leaves and see how they've kind of chewed them all up. Here you can see one of the leaves that they're really chewed up on. They tend to attack the same areas on the leaves time after time after time. I think that they tend to congregate in those areas because they leave pheromones behind, so they're attracted to the same spots that they've eaten. Because some of the leaves essentially have no damage on them at all. This one is looking, pretty decent on the edges a little bit. But this is a problem that we're going to have, all the while now that the Japanese beetles are around. I've been working and fighting against them since June, and here we are in the middle of August. Last year, the bugs just chewed up all the leaves off my roses. I've been able to control it a bit better this year. The roses here on the left side of my bed, these little plant here and this bigger plant here, are the only ones that actually produce roses or flowers. I don't know what's going on with the other two I have. They're over here. They grow a lot of vines and a lot of leaves, but they don't produce any flowers. As an experiment, I planted a pepper in this pot last year. It didn't do very well, and I overwintered it inside the house, but I didn't do it properly. I went onto YouTube this year and found out that when you overwinter a pepper plant, you need to really prune it way back. And this one essentially did it by itself, and then I trimmed it way down, and then it regrew, and now I'm starting to get peppers on it. But it's coming slowly. This is a small garden bed that I started last year. I dug out into my lawn and made this small garden that I could hand cultivate early in the spring and put in some of my cold weather crops in here. Well, they're all done, of course, but I got some matted straw from last year. No, earlier this year. When was it? When they put in gas lines here, I guess it was last year, and I rolled them out here to try and keep the weeds down, or the grass down around it. On the very end here, I replanted some lettuce and some kohlrabi. I'm going to try to keep that good and moist so that those seeds will germinate and see if we can't get a fall crop here. Alright, here's my Japanese beetle trap. I had a bag hanging on this one, but it was working pretty well, but this is, if the wind comes up, the bag comes off, and I have some problems. So what I did is I got a 5-gallon bucket, put a little bit of water in it, put some soap in there to break the surface tension of the water, and now when the beetles come and they hit these yellow veins, they fall down into the water. I haven't emptied the bucket in a few days, which is probably one of the reasons why I have so many of them in here. But I need to empty it out every couple of days, every 3 days. Otherwise, they stink so bad. And then the raccoons come out of the woods at night and knock the bucket over and eat the bugs. It creates kind of a mess, and just encourages the raccoons to come into my yard, which I really don't want. My summer raspberries did very well this year, much better than the last few years. They're looking pretty nice, but like I said, I had to come down here every day that I was home, sometimes 3, sometimes 4 times a day, to knock the Japanese beetles off the leaves. These leaves are just Japanese beetles magnets. Here I have a couple of grapevines. They're not yet big enough to train, but I do need to get some more wood in here and string some wire or something for them to grow across so I can train them properly. I've had nothing but trouble trying to grow grapes, but I may have solved some of that problem because there are some grapes here. These are small. I think they're Concord, but they're awfully small. Probably need to do some extra tender loving care with them next year, see if I can't get them to produce better. We're now up by the small garden I have up by my house. These are ever-bearing raspberries. They produced some earlier this year. They're really small, however, but I see they are now producing the September and October crop on the ends here. Again, I have to come in here and knock the Japanese beetles off. I did that before I started the video here. But they've been lots of bumblebees around them as well. So we're getting some good pollinators here. I think I need to thin them out though. I think they're just way too crowded. I think here we have one of our better success stories of the gardening orchard this year. These are peaches. This is the younger of the 2 trees. It doesn't have quite as many peaches on as the other one, even though I think the plant is actually looking nicer than the other one. They were really small, but I see they're starting to add some size to them now here. They're still pretty hard, so let them keep maturing so they gain more sugar. The other older tree is here in the background, and it has many more peaches on it. I'm looking forward to eating these. I have 2 apple trees. This one's called Freedom. It was again loaded with apples. I went through in the early spring and broke off a lot of the apples just so that there were only no more than 3 apples in a bunch. But I think I should have taken off even more. I've canned so far, let's see, what is it? 11 quarts of applesauce. But I'll be canning a whole lot more here just from this tree. This is the very, very prolific tree. And the apples are very good. Here we have some type of very unique lily. Just a single stalk, and then they come up with, and they have about 3 or 4 or 5 flower heads that come off of them. Earlier in the year there were leaves here, but then they died back, and just within the last few days these have sprung up. Total surprise. These bulbs I received last year from one of the couples that I square danced with. They were thinning out their bulbs. So I've added them here to this garden, which I expanded last year. Here we have my blueberry bed. I planted 5 blueberries last year. They're all along the upper side of the hill here. I got these from Gurney's. They're not doing well. Every time I have planted blueberries, I've been unsuccessful at having them do well. They're growing, but that's about all I can say about them. Fed them with Miracle Grow acid, Mir acid, but they don't seem to be responding. I mulched them real well with pine needles that I put over them last year that I got from my neighbor's red pine that all blew onto my yard last year, but they just aren't doing well. flower plant here is a volunteer. That one came on its own. These are the blueberries that I got this year in the spring and planted them. You can see they're not doing as well as the other ones I planted last year. There's 5 of them in here. They're even hard to find because they're not doing well. I have one up here, one up here. This is my last time trying to work with blueberries. If this doesn't work, no more chances for blueberries. Well, the strawberry bed is looking a lot better now that I've kept the deer out of it. The plants are sending out huge numbers of runners. I think I'm going to have to come in here and decide which ones I want to keep and which ones not. Kind of thin them out. Otherwise I think we're going to have some problems. Tried to come in here and do some weeding yesterday and I found a bunch of Japanese beetles in here. So I had to take some effort to try and get those out of there. We have 2 hazelnut trees. With this shot you can see that there's some hazelnuts on here. Last year we had some nuts on the trees as well, but we did not get a single one. Before they got fully ripe and I was ready to pick them, a squirrel got in here and decided they were ripe enough for it. And it came in here and got every last one of them. So I've tried to keep an eye on the tree, make sure that we get down in here and get some of these nuts before the squirrels get them all. We have 2 trees. The other one's smaller than this one, but it also has some pretty nice nuts on them. If I have to get them early, I'll have to let them out and dry and see if they can't get ripe that way. I've gone online to see what people have done to try to combat the squirrels. And that's what some people have done. They just, as soon as the squirrels come after them, they get them off the tree and set them someplace to dry. Hopefully, we can get them to actually mature on the tree. That would be best. In order to keep the raccoons out of my sweet corn, I put in electric fence this year. I figured that it would work just fine since I had to put up a fence to keep the deer out. So I put the fence around and strung 30-pound weight monofilament fishing line. I think 5 or 6 strands of it around to keep the deer out. And then I put in 1 strand of electric fence wire. And it's kept them out. I don't even turn it on anymore. I think that they've learned that they should not come into this garden. They've been zapped a time or 2 and they said, okay, I learned my lesson, I'm not going to come back. So I can take this out of here now. Of the 4 cabbage plants I had this year, 1 produced a head. I cut it off and made coleslaw, and I left it growing knowing that it could produce some little heads coming out of it. I think I got 5 or 6 little heads now growing out of this plant that's here. I have to keep an eye on it, make sure I get them early enough before they go bad. But I should be able to get some more coleslaw here from this plant. I don't know why, but my zucchini plants, 2 of them, have died. It might be that there was a fungus or something in the soil, and then when it rained, it got up on the leaves and killed it. I don't know. But most of my vines are not looking good. I had 2 cucumber plants. One of them's dead. The other one's looking very sick. So I don't know if we're going to be able to get any more cucumbers this year. Another vining plant that's not doing well is a squash. These are butternut squash, but they look as though they might be ready to eat. Here I have musk melon, cantaloupe. I have a couple different varieties. These seem to be maturing later than the other ones. I've actually been eating a few of them already, few of the cantaloupe already. Gave one away today. But these look like they're going to be pretty good. We've been eating watermelon as well. We haven't had this kind in the past, the striped kind. These might be the seedless that I bought this year, but I do not know. They might be a different seeded kind. Right, here we have my little grape tomatoes. They're just spreading out all over the place. I don't think I'm going to be planting grape tomatoes anymore. I was disappointed in their flavor. Next year I'll probably try a couple plants of cherry tomatoes. My second planting of sweet corn is here. I went through and got most of the corn out of there now, and the other ones are really taking a long time to mature. I have to go through today and see if some of them are ready. The other one, the early planting in the background here, that's been done for quite a while now. And now I will chop these up and get these out of here. Clean up the garden. This is where the peas were. You can see they're all dead. Next to them are the beets. The deer came in here and ate the tops off these beets. Once I got the fence up, they had a chance to recover, and they're doing well. I'll probably have to get in here and freeze some of these because we certainly can't eat them fast enough. This tomato is it's for canning, making salsa. I always forget names. It doesn't look so good. It looks like it got some kind of a blight on it. Same type of tomato here. And in the background, looking very, very nice. I'm going to have to be making canning some tomatoes here really shortly. Maybe on Sunday when the temperature cools down a little bit. The carrots. Again, the deer came in here and just ate the tops off these carrots. Got the fence up and they have recovered nicely. And I'll be digging some of these up soon. Unfortunately, the wife isn't eating very many root crops anymore. So I'll probably have to freeze a lot of those carrots because I won't be able to eat them all raw. All right. And here's my yard, lower land here. I ordered 20 trees quite a few years ago now. They were deciduous trees, different kinds of deciduous trees. And the company I bought them from sent me 100 evergreens. I said, oh, I don't want that. And here's what I have now. The hardwoods are not doing well. They're coming very, very slowly. But they're starting to do a little bit better. The white pine in the background are doing the best. Well, that's it for this episode of the Juneau Garden. Perhaps we'll do this again next year.